hidden away in the twists and turns of our own brains, needing but the right conditions to call them forth with vividness. There are hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of impressions which have been registered there day by day. The first childhood's scare on learning of the presence of burglars in the house may make us supersensitive to night noises in middle age. The indelible recollection of a mother's love and tenderness may arise, after 40 years, to choke down some harsh word which we are about to utter. The combined impressions of 1,000 experiences with other human beings seem to blend together to help us form our judgment of a single human being with whom we are about to deal. As the weeks have rolled into months, and as the months have melted into years, new impressions have arisen to crowd out the old. Stronger impressions have supplanted the weak. Bigger impressions have taken the place of lesser ones, but the old impressions are always there, always blending themselves into our judgments, our ambitions, our desires, our ideals, always ready and waiting, apparently, to single themselves out and appear before us brilliantly whenever the proper combination of conditions arises. So too with the seed. Every drought that has caused hardship to its ancestors is recorded as a tendency in that seed. Every favoring condition which has brought a forebear to greater productiveness is there as a tendency in that seed. Every frost, every rain, every rise of the morning sun has left its imprint in the line of ancestry and helped to mold tendencies to be passed from plant to plant. Beneath the wooden-looking, hard-sheathed covering of the seed there is confined a bundle of tendencies, an infinite bundle, and nothing more. One tendency stronger than another, perhaps, a good tendency suppressing a bad tendency, or the other way. Tendencies inherited from immediate parents, tendencies coming down from wild ancestry, tendencies originating from the influences of 20 centuries or more ago, tendencies which are latent, awaiting only the right combination of conditions to bring them to life. All of the tendencies of a complex ancestry, some lulled to sleep, but none obliterated. That is a seed. The whole life history of a plant, said Mr. Burbank, is stored away in its seeds. If we plant enough of the seeds in enough different environments, we are sure to have that life history with all its variations, all of its hardships, all of its improvements and retrogressions uncovered before us. Which brings us to the boyhood lesson which Luther Burbank learned. Thomas A. Edison spilled chemicals on the floor of a baggage car, lost his job as train boy, and made electricity his vocation instead of his avocation. Luther Burbank found a seed ball on one of the plants of his mother's potato patch. Who knows what little thing will change a career, or what accident will transform an ideal? The print above shows potato seed balls such as Luther Burbank in his boyhood found. The potato has become so accustomed to being reproduced by the division of its tuber that seed balls are now a rarity. And while the tuber procedure produces potatoes true to type, the seed balls, the rarer they become, seem to lose all connection with the present and grow into potatoes which hark back to the long-forgotten traits of old heredity. Or what triviality out of the ordinary will lead to the discovery of a new truth? The potato seed ball was a little thing, an accident, almost a triviality at least, so any practical farmer would have said. Away back in the history of the potato, when it had to depend upon its seed for reproduction, every healthy potato plant bore one or more. But years of cultivation have removed from the potato the necessity of bearing seeds for the preservation of its race. The potato plant, so certain now to reproduce itself through subdivision of its bulb or tuber, so reliant on man for its propagation, has little use for the seed upon which its ancestors depended for perpetuation before men relieved it of this burden. So the average potato grower, knowing that next year's crop depends only on this year's tubers, and being more anxious, alas, to keep his crop at a fixed standard than to improve it, might see the occasional seed ball without knowing its meaning or realizing its possibilities. Luther Burbank saw the seed ball in his mother's potato patch. If he did not realize its possibilities, at least he scented an adventure. And who can say in advance where any adventure will lead? And who can say in advance where any adventure, will lead? How Mr. Burbank lost the precious potato seed ball, how he found it again and then nearly spoiled the outcome by not knowing how to plant the seed, and the practical lessons in method which he learned, these are things which will be explained at length in the proper place. The interesting fact to be noted here, however, is that from this seed ball, he produced 23 new potato plants. Each of these plants yielded its own interesting individual variations, its own interpretation of long-forgotten heredity. A beautiful long potato decayed almost as soon as dug. Another was red-skinned with white eyes. Several had eyes so deep that they were unfit for use. All varied widely. The 23, in fact, represented as many different stages in the history of the potato family, and having no present-day environment to hold them in balance. All were unlike any potato which had ever been cultivated. Among the number, though, was one tuber better than the rest, and better than any potato which Luther Burbank had ever seen. That tuber was the parent of the almost universally grown Burbank potato of today. When Luther Burbank selected from his 23 potato seedlings what eventually was to become the parent of a new race of potatoes, it may be said that he was then fairly started on his successful career of plant improvement. A direct color photograph print of different kinds of potatoes produced from a single potato seed ball. It will be seen that while all of these potatoes are small, some are more shapely than others, and at the bottom of the picture will be seen a common variation of tubers known as snake potatoes. These forms represent different stages in the history of the potato, and almost any potato seed ball will give variations as wide or wider than these. Had he rested on his honors and been satisfied with this single new production, the world would always have been his debtor. For up to that time the potatoes of the world were small, more or less uncertain of bearing, and of mediocre yield. The older varieties, disregarding the fact that their yield was but 1/4 of the present production, would find no buyers in our markets. With the same work, indeed with less, both the pioneer who grew potatoes for his own sustenance and the potato specialist who produced his crop on a commercial basis were able to quadruple their output, to make 4 measures of food, 4 measures of profit grow where but one had grown before. And today, when more pounds of potatoes are grown than of any other food crop of the world, the increase made in a single year's crop, the increase gained without any corresponding increase in capital invested or cost of production, amounts to an astounding sum in the millions. Possibly at no other time in the history of the nation could the Burbank potato have come more opportunely. These were the days when Chicago was a far western city and when the great territory beyond was the home of the pioneer. The potato is a vegetable designed peculiarly for the pioneer. It requires no great preparation either for planting or harvesting. It grows rapidly on the new rich soil turned over by a settler. A little cultivation ensures its growth. When ripened, it may lie in the ground and be used as needed. When the fall frosts come, it can easily be banked in a pit for winter use. Little care, small outlay, easy preparation for food, these make the potato the first crop to be grown when the settler locates his new home. Trace now the influence which this one success had upon a growing nation. It was in 1871. It was a time when the line between success and failure, between starvation and comfortable plenty, was drawn so finely for the pioneer that even the slightest help was of a value out of proportion to its intrinsic worth. An improvement in one of the most important crops, which, as has been stated by a member of the United States Department of Agriculture, is adding $17 million a year to the farm incomes of America alone, to say nothing of foreign countries. This potato was produced by Mr. Burbank when in his teens, and was the result of finding a seed ball at his mother's potato patch. The perfection of this potato involved no form of crossing or hybridization, but was brought about solely through utilizing the forces of environment and heredity, and by careful selection. A crop failure or shortage in those reconstruction days after the war meant a setback that would take years to overcome, for the pioneer's only source of supply, usually, was his own crop. Any increase, therefore, in nature's products, such as the potato, in the days of the pioneer, signified more to the world than it ever has since. Multiplying a potato yield by 4 then meant more than were such a yield multiplied by 10 or even 100 now. But the greatest value which the Burbank potato gave to the world was not in the increase in its potato crop. The greatest service it rendered was not even the $17 million a year addition to America's farm incomes, which this potato has been estimated to have wrought. The greatest value it gave, the greatest service it performed, was to turn Luther Burbank into a new line of invention, into a line in which, because it is so basic and so vast, even a slight improvement means a fortune to the world of consumers, and the perfection of a new food or forage plant untold billions in added wealth. It was the potato seed ball found by Luther Burbank, the boy, which gave the world Luther Burbank, the man. It was his success with the potato which put in his heart the courage to forswear the certainty of farming for the ups and downs of an inventor's life, and it was the lesson in heredity which it taught that placed him on the trail of great achievement. Plant potato eyes and you get potatoes like the parents, improving or retrograding a little according to the present environment in which they grow. But plant potato seeds and you tap a mine of heredity, infinite in its uncertainty, but infinite too in its possibility. That was the boyhood lesson which Luther Burbank learned. We shall see now, how he applied it to other plants, how he built on it and expanded it, and how it became the basis of more than 100,000 later experiments in plant life. Heredity is the sum of all of the environments of a complex ancestry back to the beginning.